explorer, mountaineer, pioneer, adventurer. Kenton Cool.
Hello and welcome to the special edition of the Brinker Leadership Series, Extraordinary Leaders in Extraordinary Times by Adi Partners. I am Hiral Desai.
COVID-19, the pandemic of this millennium, has changed our daily lives irrevocably. It has also given us an opportunity to see how important it is to value nature and humanity. I am Sanjay Viswanathan.
Indeed, Sanjay, through the Brinker Leadership Series, we are actually identifying a cohort of champions who can actually influence and energize this war against coronavirus. I'm sure everyone is intrigued with the visuals we played just at the start of the show, isn't it?
Absolutely, Hiral. I mean, let's not wait too long. And, without much ado, I want to introduce our guest for the day. A fascinating gentleman, a terrific mountaineer, and one of Britain's leading alpine and high-altitude climbers who has summited Mount Everest not once, not twice, not thrice, but 14 times. He has the expedition behind him, in terms of having led many of them, including the most recent one, where he led Sir Ranulph Fiennes on the north face of the Eiger Ascent and the Everest Summit, helping raise almost £6 million for charity. And along with being an avid adventurer, he is also a highly engaging and inspirational motivational speaker. He's completed over 20 expeditions in the greater ranges, and in 2013 became the first person to climb Nuptse, Everest, and Lhotse in a single push without returning to base camp. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Kenton Cool. Welcome, Kenton.
Thank you very much, guys. How are we all? Is everybody well in these uncertain times?
Absolutely, Kenton. We hope everyone's well as well. And kudos to you for doing what you've done already. I mean, we need to understand, how do you do this? You've continued to do it again and again.
Well, I think it's all to do with mindset. And I think if I stop doing what I currently do, if I stop climbing at high altitude, if I stop professionally leading people to the top of the world, I would feel somewhat, I don't think I've reached my full potential yet. And the key with all of this thing is I don't want to turn my back on something that I love so much and feel that I have not given it everything. Because I'm a true believer that if we go down a pathway of discovery, we need to explore every single avenue. We need to turn over every single stone, no matter how big or how small, so that we get the full experience and that we develop and grow and learn as best we can. And certainly with mountaineering, you could argue, well, you're never going to get to turn over each stone or climb every mountain. But it doesn't stop me from trying. And I will continue to push forward and try to develop myself as best I can in this wonderful environment that I get to not only play in, but also is my workspace. I'm a professional mountain guide. So that's why I keep driving forwards. And some people say you never stop. Well, it's easy not to stop when whatever it is you're doing is your passion.
Absolutely, very well put up, because, if I see your success rate as well, that clearly proves what you're saying. When we look at the average success rate for most going up to the Everest, say it's around 50%, 55%. When I look at your success rate, it's gone over 80%, and that's a wow number. How? I mean, again, it's a how over here as to how do you manage to achieve that 80%?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. We're very lucky in so much that certainly these days we can carefully select the clients that we work with. And we spend a long time building meaningful relationships with our clients. It's not a transactional, well, here's Mount Everest, we're going to climb up and down, and we never have any interaction again. We would generally spend 2, maybe even 3 years building a relationship with our clients before we would even start to look at going to Nepal and climbing Mount Everest. So there is that investment of time and energy before the mountain. And then underneath that, we have a fantastic team. Our core Sherpa team has been pretty much unchanged for 10 years. And the way we do that is by getting the culture right. We have a culture within the team that people want to be part of. It is a winning culture. It's a culture that is all-inclusive. It's a no-blame culture. And it's proved time and time again to be successful. So when you bring those two together, having the right engagement with the client, having the right team, with the right depth of experience, and this is perhaps slightly arrogant on my part, but then if you bring in the right leadership credentials, then you have an expedition or a team which is capable of almost everything. And the other, I suppose, key thing is we've always kept ourselves quite small. And I think it was Steve Jobs famously once said that having a small group of A-class players is always going to be more powerful and more successful than even the very largest group of B and C-class players. And I like to think that's what we've done. We've brought together a fantastic Sherpa team. We engage with fantastic clients, and then we execute on our strategic planning very, very well. And that, I think, is at the very core of why we've been continually successful on Everest.
Fascinating, Kenton. And if I was to switch tracks a bit and talk about the lockdown, what is your typical day like these days?
Well, I mean, right now, normally I'm on Everest. So day to day is vastly different than it would normally be. So my day starts about 6:15 in the morning. I get out of bed. I'm one of these people that I can get out of bed like this. I creep downstairs so I don't wake the children or my wife. And I slip out for my morning run. And I will do anywhere between 10 and 15 kilometers pretty much every morning. And I run with the dog. I come back and the children are up having breakfast and my wife is up. And then collectively we do the Joe Wicks workout. And so there's this English online trainer called Joe Wicks, and he's gone huge. So we do that together. And then it's sat down at my desk for about 9:30 after Joe Wicks. The children are being homeschooled at the moment because of lockdown. And then we all work through to 1 o'clock where we break for lunch. And that's actually where I first break my fast. So I don't have a traditional breakfast. I will only drink coffee or water or mint tea in the morning. So I'll break my fast at 1 o'clock. And then the afternoon's a bit more fluid. It depends a little bit what the children are up to. Because I am trying to use this time not only as productively as possible for the business, but also as productively as possible for the well-being of the family. So the afternoons are a little bit more fluid. There might be some bike riding or going out to play some cricket or kicking a football about a little bit, something like that. And then sometimes I've got to go out and take some calls. And then we come together about 5 o'clock for supper. And then we get into the normal routine of bath time, story time for the children. Children go to bed, and then my wife and I have a couple of hours in the evening. And then, everybody goes down to bed. And what's been really interesting, Sanjay, is it's given a real structure to our lives, which we don't normally have. So I do a lot of travel. My wife is a sought-after exec coach. She's also a sales trainer. So she travels a lot of client-facing. And our normal schedules are all over the place. It's very chaotic. And we're trying to juggle the children and school and business and personal lives. And this has brought a structure which up to this point we've never had before. And that has been definitely a positive. It's been hard, it's been uncertain, it's been challenging, but at the same time, it's been surprisingly fulfilling having that structure in place.
Very interesting. And when you look about, look at people having a purpose during this time, and in your structured world, what would your purpose be? And what would you say people should have as one during a lockdown?
So when all this first kicked off, we went, I think, into full crisis mode. I think many of us did. We didn't quite know how long it was going to last for. We didn't know how it was going to affect business. And my business, which is predominantly client-facing in some degree, either mountain guiding in the Himalayas, or I do a lot of corporate speaking, which again is face-to-face, predominantly client-facing. So the business just dropped off, if you excuse the pun, it dropped off a cliff. And it did cause a degree of concern. And we spiraled into that initial crisis management of, okay, what is it that we need to do to stabilize where we are right now? So the initial purpose was, we need to stabilize, we need to stop hemorrhaging finances, and we need to come together to form a cohesive unit so that we are there to support each other as a family and also as a community. And what I mean by community is my Sherpa friends and my Sherpa team out in Nepal, they also needed support, and they also needed a degree of certainty as to what is going to happen. Because we were only about 2 weeks away from embarking on an Everest expedition. So what we initially did as a business, we honored all our Sherpa wages. All the staff got paid regardless. So the business took a hit on that. But that, for me, was morally a no-brainer. My values instilled deep inside me said, this is what we have to do. And then purpose then shifted. Once we stabilized, purpose then shifted to, how can we be battle ready? How can we be ready to go when we have the opportunity to travel again, or when we have an opportunity to operate again? And what it was trying to identify what we need to do both personally and professionally to be ready. And we have shifted a little bit our focus business-wise. So if you take my speaking business, we're taking things online for obvious reasons.
Correct.
But we're still keeping connected with the face-to-face, because I think when we pop out of this, that's still going to have a very important factor in our lives. But you can also do online webinars now, you can do online learning, online development, online coaching. So we shifted in that a little bit and started to explore those opportunities and avenues. And then from a business point of view, in terms of the guiding, is we need to be stronger, fitter, faster, and more agile than we've ever been for when it does open up. So our purpose has been to be ready for when we pop out. Now, we don't know when that is.
Yeah.
So all we can do is we need to control the controllables that we have direct input on. And by doing that extremely well, then we can be agile and dexterous to work with the uncontrollables, because we don't know what that's going to be. So lock the controllables, and that allows you to be malleable and work with the uncontrollables. So that's been our purpose: be battle ready for when things do open up.
Absolutely, be battle ready. Kenton, but how much are you, missing the mountains right now versus the structured, family time that you have been getting? How do you weigh that?
I love the family. Obviously, I've got two beautiful children. I'm going to be biased. I mean, I'm a father. So of course they're the most beautiful children in the world. But I like to think that my family extends beyond my biological family. I considered my Sherpa friends, my Sherpa team, that they're family as well, and I miss them dearly. I think Nepal is right now potentially working towards their peak in COVID-19. I don't think they've reached it yet. It's a very poor nation, as we know. So that's been weighing very, very heavy on me. And I do miss them. And I miss the mountains. And one of the reasons why I miss them so much is because I go to the mountains and it offers me a reset on what's important to me. It clears all the distractions away. It gives me a very clear focus on what's important. It gives me a clarity on life. And more than anything else, it gives me space to think. You know, it removes, this is arguably the most powerful tool we have at our disposal. At the same time, is one of the biggest negatives we have at our disposal. This is the biggest distraction any of us have in our lives, more so than the children. And when I go on expedition, this virtually disappears. And it gives you the ability to focus on what's actually important in life. And that's what the mountains give me. And right now, in this melee of uncertainty, we need that clarity of thought and focus more than ever. Yeah. So that's one of the key things I miss. I desperately miss my Sherpa family. I desperately miss the mountains. But you know what? I know it will be there. And when I do get to go back, it will be even sweeter than before.
I'm sure. I think it'll be more sweeter. So with mountaineering, you know, you've been talking about what you miss the most about your, you know, what you do. What are the kind of attributes and skills that you've honed in your year scaling Mount Everest successfully so far?
I think one of the key things about that I've learned is the importance of clarity of thought and the ability to make far-reaching decisions quickly and efficiently. And I think that really overlays with where we are right now. The world is in crisis. And if you look at crisis management, I mean, I've learned the hard way from being on expeditions. You know, we've been through many crises on expeditions when things perhaps haven't gone quite how we planned, or when there's a curveball comes in. And I think you can distill it down to key attributes. Time, for instance. Don't waste time. Make sure that the culture in the team is right. Keep things logical. I have this term I use, binary thinking. Focus on what's really important. Don't get distracted, because we're all guilty of distraction, and it's focus in a way. Key resources that we have at our fingertips if we want to develop and grow business or personally. The key resources are generally capital or money, time, and focus. But focus isn't necessarily something which we all have as an innate ability. So it's something we need to work at. We need to work at our focus. And we are easily distracted by the iPhone or the emails or whatever that comes in. But if we really, if we're high on a mountain and we're gunning for the summit, my only focus is getting the client safely to the top and back down again. So I have no distraction. And that's where binary thinking comes in. Binary thinking is black-white, 1-0. So key things that I've learned from the mountains are, clear, conscious lines of decision-making, and make those decisions quickly. I work more and more in the corporate world, and I get so frustrated by the lack of quick, concise decision-making. Everybody these days doesn't accept responsibility for decision-making. They genuinely want to chunk up or chunk sideways to get a backup or to get an exit clause if it goes wrong. Well, we don't have that luxury in the mountains. We need to make those decisions, stick to those decisions. And you know what? If it's the wrong decision, we need to accept responsibility for it.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the key learnings that I've got from the mountains. You need to be responsible for your decision making. And I think that's something which should be, rolled over more into the corporate world. Because all of a sudden then even the biggest corporations become much more agile and dexterous, because they're not wasting precious time deliberating over should they, shouldn't they. It's okay, we're going to choose this avenue and we're going to run with it. Because that's what we have to do in the mountains.
Absolutely.
Indeed, Kenton. And I think when you think about what you just said in terms of accountability and responsibility at that high altitude, it is, in many ways brought to the fore in today's pandemic when there is simply no margin for error, whether as a corporate leader or as a family leader. The margins have just reduced so much, similar to when you're at the valley of death, or when you're just at that close to the summit, isn't it, Kenton?
Very much so, and I talk about this quite a lot in the corporate world, and I genuinely put the question, or often put the question out there to the audience: what keeps you sharp? Because more often than not, if a bad decision is made, in the government or in the boardroom, okay, you might lose a court case, or you might lose a big deal, but people don't die. And then all of a sudden, in the real world, the normal world, with a pandemic, people are dying. And the decisions which government and experts and local authorities or whoever it is, they have far-reaching consequences beyond simply losing a court case or whatever it may be. And that's very similar to the mountains. If we get a decision wrong in the mountains, generally people are going to get frostbite, might lose fingers, or at worst, they could potentially die. Well, when you have that hanging over you, then all of a sudden you are very sharp, very focused, and you have to have the clarity of thought. Now, that's exactly what we find ourselves in now. If governments, or if they make wrong decisions, if they waste time, if they're not being focused enough, then the ramifications are people are going to die. So we need to be accurate and relevant with our decision making, and more than that, we need to be quick with our decision making. So it's really interesting to see what the responses are in this current crisis, and how different governments have responded in different ways. And I have to hold my hands up. I would hate to be at that level right now, because the luxury I have is I don't have parties influencing my decision making when I'm in the mountains. I don't have the media that I've got to contend with. I don't have experts talking into my ear. I am the expert at 8,000 meters, whereas our global leaders are trying to juggle a whole melee of different things, and it must be desperately, desperately difficult. And all the time, they're probably looking, unfortunately, at that death toll rising. So very, very difficult times right now.
And when you think about that and the front line of COVID, what are you doing today, Kenton, given your stature, your expertise, your mental strength? What are you bringing to people around you?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of things, and I'm perhaps not actively going out there on the front line and putting things out. I mean, I'm sat right now in a local theatre. This is the Barn Theatre, and we've been putting out a show here. And it's only on a very small level, but as soon as COVID came along and lockdown, this is a beautiful community-driven theatre. And overnight, they had to shut their doors. 3 productions got shut straight away. And I jumped on board, and we're doing an online show because the team here believe that they can still generate and drive an audience despite the fact they can't operate as they normally would. So I've come on board to try to help a little bit with that and try to get some donations. It's called Save Our Barn. If anybody out there wants to jump on board, just Google Save Our Barn. So this is sort of real grassroots level. I'm also incredibly invested in Nepal. I love the Nepalese people. So I've been trying to help with getting PPE across to Nepal, be it face masks, gloves, like the gowns that the medical teams are wearing. I'm very lucky. A friend of mine has access to some of this PPE, and we've been trying to cut through some of the red tape to get to PPE to places which perhaps wouldn't normally have access. So we've been trying to get PPE into Nepal. We've been trying to get PPE actually into India as well. to just try to do just a little bit through some of the avenues that we've got through my mountaineering. You know, I import kit and foodstuffs and equipment into Nepal and India on a regular basis. And it's like, well, you know, how can I use my influence to try to help out? And then even at a more basic level, I've been putting out my Instagram stories, and the feedback is that my positivity of my morning runs and hey, it's a hell yes Wednesday or whatever it is. Loads of people have been coming back saying, I really appreciate your positivity. You know, you're putting your best foot forward. You're putting a smiley face out every day, and you know, we thank you. So just small things that we've been trying to do across lots of different avenues, from the barn theatre here through to helping communities in Nepal and India to the online community of being positive and trying to help out people that way. So it's, I don't think I've really been helping out at all. I've just been doing what I think is morally the correct thing to do.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you know, when you talk about the positivity as well, that's something that everyone lacks right now in these times of COVID. What's the kind of experience, Kelton, are you getting when when you're talking to people who are under stress, when when people who lack the passion, lack the mental strength right now, because everyone is worried. Everywhere there is fear, people are locked up, people are undergoing depression. So when you're talking to people like these, what is the sense that you get, and how is it that you actually get them to get to levels of self-belief? How do you motivate them, and how do you treat them in terms of saying that, hey, you have to be positive, get out of your fears?
Well, I think one of the key things is, you know, and it's a tagline I've been using, we are in this together. So none of us are beyond sort of the influence of depression or anxiety, and it's a very pertinent question. And of course, being locked down at home and not being able to go out, I'm lucky. I have pretty much a field, you know, open space out of my back door. Not everybody has that. So everybody is slightly different, but the key thing is we are all suffering together. And I'm a true believer in this. It's not a loss of pride or self-esteem to ask other people for help. And it's not been easy in lockdown, because that help has to come through a telephone call or an online thing, because we've not been able to get together as a community. We've not been able to share ideas. We've not been able to share, shed tears together. We've been separated. But we are all, to a certain extent, going through the same thing. And we are all experiencing some sense of loss, be it monetary loss, be it loss of supporting members in families or communities, or loss of not being able to go outside, or whatever it may be. We are all experiencing this. So if it's happening to an individual and they're struggling with it, one of the things I've been saying to friends and family and people even I don't know on social media is, don't be afraid to ask for help. And by sharing the anxiety goes part way to understanding it yourself, and then you can start treating what it is and finding solutions to whatever it is. Of course, it's desperately difficult times. And the overriding thing that I've always learned from an expedition, and when things do get really hard, light always follows darkness. And we may be, in the bottom of a black hole right now, but at some stage there's going to be a chink of light, and that light will start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, we will pop out into daylight, and we will return to some sense of normality, and we will be able to socialize and hug and shed tears together and story tell together. And we will be able to come together as families, friends, and community. And it's never lose sight of that. Because if you lose sight of that, then potentially you're going to downward spiral, never to come back out. So it's, never losing sight that there is always an end to whatever it is. And then, the other motivation and the positivity I'm just a positive person, and positivity is infectious. So if you put a smile on your face every morning, you'd be surprised how quickly others will start to smile back at you.
Absolutely. I mean, positivity is the success factor. Kenton, overall, we mentioned about decision making, we spoke about motivation, but overall, if you go to see right now, there are a couple of critical success factors that you endorse as well in terms of leadership, in terms of facing fears, in terms of self motivation, and beyond all of this, to maintain that momentum from here on. If you have to look at all of this, what would your advice be? How should one actually maintain that momentum? And the same comes back to the corporate world where people lack momentum at some given point in time. What would your advice be on that front?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of things. First and foremost, it's almost impossible to be 100% all the time. We just can't do it. Everybody's going to ebb and flow to a certain extent. And it's when you are ebbing and flowing, that's where you need the culture and the team that you're part of. You don't necessarily need to be a team leader. The teams that we put together, everybody is an equal. Nobody's got a higher stature than anybody else because we all need one another. And if I'm having a bad day on Mount Everest, I know Dorji's going to step up to the plate. Or I know Ang Shearing will. Or something. We have the depth of experience within the team to bolster one another. So don't expect to be firing on all cylinders all the time. You just can't do it. I have down days. And sometimes I'm doing my little videos on Instagram in the morning and I'm not really feeling the love. Sometimes I will put that across because I'm very honest. And other times I'm not going to be the person that's down today. I will start my reboot right now by going into Instagram or whatever it is and being super positive. And generally, by the time I put the phone down, a minute later, I've rebooted myself and I'm like, I'm going to make today count. And the other thing which I think is really important, and I know he fell from grace, but I still, to a certain degree, do have him as a hero of mine, is Lance Armstrong. And Lance Armstrong famously once said that pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. And look where we are with lockdown. We don't quite know how much further we have to go. But one thing that we do know is we are getting towards the end. If we were to give up now, we would look back at some stage and go, God, look how close we came. I wish we had hung on. Because this pain that we're in, it's going to end. And sooner rather than later, probably now. Now, we're not going to get back to what we were, but we're going to start seeing some easing measures. I think we can all agree on that. We're going to start to see that. We're so close. If we were to give up now, we will probably never forgive ourselves. So let's endure the pain just a little bit longer. Because in 10, 20, 50 years' time, we will look back and we will be able to say, we got through that, rather than look back and go, I wish we had tried that little bit harder. Pain is temporary, quitting is forever. That's a strong quote from a man that unfortunately fell from grace.
Indeed. So when is summit number 15, Kenton?
Well, I'm hoping that we could get back to Everest this autumn. I really do. From a personal side of things, I would love to get back to the mountains. I would love to be back with my Sherpa team. And also from a revenue side of things, my business is hinged to a certain extent on Everest. But if the time's not right, the time's not right. And what we will do as a team, we will be ready to go when it does open up again. So if it's not this autumn, it's definitely going to be next spring. So we are definitely going to see Summit 15. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, the team's will come back together. We will be back on Everest. And to be honest, we can't wait. We really can't. It's something that's keeping us positive and keeping us focused.
I'm sure all of us are waiting to hear for the next one as well. Another one is, this is the next summit. Which is the biggest one that you think you're dreaming to do?
Well, I would dearly love to go back to Pakistan, and we all know that there's one particular mountain in Pakistan which I've not climbed, which is K2. I was meant to be going there this summer. There's still just a very small grain of hope that we might be able to get there this summer, but I think that is, if we're realistic, that's ebbing away. But I'd love to attempt K2. I've not been on her slopes yet, but I'd love to attempt K2. But then I'm also planning some trips back to North India. India's got some fantastic unexplored mountains. There's so much potential for first ascents and some great adventure there. So we've got a lot bubbling away right now. We're using this time constructively, so that when we can travel again, we're going to be properly ready to go, wherever that may be.
Terrific. Well, Kenton, thank you so much for the time you've spent. In Hiral, I think we can take away some amazing lessons from what Kenton has spoken of here. I mean, one of them being structure, the other being very focused, a third being accountability, and then a fourth is never give up, because pain is temporary, quitting is permanent.
Absolutely. And till the time, at least, Kenton takes us to climb one of the mountains, at least when he's in India, we'll try doing a peekaboo at the base camp. At least that much we could probably touch from here on. But great having you on the show, Kenton. Thank you for tuning in as well. Sanjay and I will be back to share more extraordinary leaders in these extraordinary times. See you soon.